Hello everyone. In this session, let us understand. Now let us discuss about a process in which the CPU is going to select exactly only one RAM chip from the available chips. Okay, this is called memory address mapping. Let us have a look at it. As we are discussing about the Bootstrap loader, and Bootstrap loader is the first program that is going to get executed when the computer system gets started. That is, when you switch on the system, initially there is nothing in RAM. Operating system is not present in the RAM. Unless the operating system is loaded into the RAM, there is no way nothing can be done. There is no way anything can be done in the computer system. Okay, so for that reason, we need to transfer the operating system from secondary memory to the main memory. Okay, so what we do is, when a computer system has been booted up, that is, you switched on the computer system, the first program that is going to get executed in the entire system is the Bootstrap loader, which is available in ROM. The Bootstrap loader, which is available in ROM. Okay, so here, when it comes to the Bootstrap loader, it will be available in ROM. Let me show you how that is going to be done. Okay, let us again, let us take this is ROM, and let us say this is RAM. Okay, RAM is completely empty, right? RAM is completely empty. There is nothing in the RAM. What we need to do? We need to transfer the operating system from the secondary memory to the RAM. Okay, there is secondary memory. From the secondary memory to the RAM, there has to be a transfer of the operating system. So here, this is ROM. When you start the system, there is a program which is available in ROM called Bootstrap loader. Okay, Bootstrap loader, Bootstrap. This is also called Bootstrap. Pardon my writing. Okay, this is called Bootstrap. The first address of the Bootstrap in ROM is, let us say, 467. Now, when the computer system is switched on, the program counter will be stored with the first address of the Bootstrap loader. You know what is the program counter? When the program is getting executed, initially the program counter is going to hold the address of the first instruction, and from the next instruction onwards, the program counter is going to point the address of the next instruction. So when you switch on the computer system, the first program that is needed to be executed is a Bootstrap loader. So as a first thing, the control will transfer the address of the first instruction of the Bootstrap loader to the program counter. When the program counter is loaded with the address, then the instruction will get started execution. That means that the Bootstrap loader program will start its execution. The moment this Bootstrap loader program finishes, then a portion of the operating system will get transferred from secondary memory to RAM. A portion. Let us say this is the complete operating system, but in the entire operating system, only a portion one, the first portion, let me say, this portion, the initial portion, portion one, will get transferred from secondary memory to RAM. Okay, after the first portion has been loaded, and I don't want any Bootstrap loaders to be executed. When you execute Bootstrap loader, the first portion will get transferred from secondary memory to RAM. After the first portion is loaded, then the operating system will load the remaining portions by itself. Only the thing that is required is we need to transfer the first portion of the operating system from the secondary memory to the main memory, which is achieved by the execution of the Bootstrap loader when the system is switched on. Okay, so that means that this Bootstrap loader is an important program that can never be erased at any point of period, right? So I do require a storage area in which the programs are not going to be erased even though the system is shut down. This is called ROM. So ROM is going to store the programs which should never be erased at any point of period. Bootstrap loader is such program which should not be erased, because if there is no Bootstrap loader, operating system cannot be loaded. once after the system is switched on from secondary memory to RAM. Okay, so essentially, RAM is going to hold programs which cannot be erased. Bootstrap Loader is one of such a program. Okay, now, of course, as it is shown, when the power is turned on, hardware set the program counter to the first address of the Bootstrap Loader. Then the Bootstrap Loader loads a portion of the operating system from disk to the main memory, and the control is transferred to OS, which prepare computer for the general use. Then the operating system will get completely loaded after the first portion is loaded. And once after the operating system has been loaded, that means that the system is ready for the use. Okay, now let us understand the design of RAM and ROM chips. The design of RAM and ROM chips is as follows. Okay, let us have a look at. See this. This is a RAM chip. Okay, this is the RAM chip. The RAM chip has, if you can have a look at, these many connections. In the screen, you can have chip selector 1, chip selector 2. There is the read, there is write, and there is an address. Okay, so this is a data bus. Again, let us have a look at the RAM chip are having these many connections. What are those? Chip selector 1, chip selector 2, read, write, address bus, and data bus. There is a connection from the address bus. There is a connection to the data bus. These are the connections that are available at a ROM chip. Okay, these are the connections that are available at a ROM chip. Now, we will understand each and every connection very clearly because we just know about read and write, address and data. Okay, but we don't know about these chip selectors. We do not have any idea about what is the use of this chip selector 1 and chip selector 2. We will understand about those chip selectors in a short while. Now, let us understand how the ROM is going to be selected. How the ROM is going to be, having the connections. How the ROM is going to be designed rather. Okay, so the ROM, when it comes to ROM, we do not have a few connections. We do not need to have a few connections that are available in RAM because RAM performs writing also, but ROM does not perform writing. So we can avoid writing, right? So when you design a ROM chip, you need not have this write pin for the ROM chip. Okay, let me show you. Let me show you by taking a paintbrush. Here, let me draw a ROM. Let me draw a RAM. The RAM will have these many connections. Chip selector 1, chip selector 2, read, write, address, data. CS1, CS2, CS2, I'm giving a bar. I will explain you guys why CS2 is having a bar on the top. First of all, you people have no idea about these two. We're going to discuss about them in a short while, in some time. And next two connections are read pin and write pin. And this is address, data. Okay. Now we will just understand the remaining things apart from CS1 and CS2. This is a RAM. This is a RAM. Okay. Now let us see that the CPU wants to locate, the CPU wants to read something which is available in 27th address. Okay. CPU wants to read the data item which is available in 27th address. Okay. That means that CPU will transfer this 27th address to the address bus. Okay. So address will get transferred to the address bus. And the address will get located in the RAM. Address will get located in the RAM. So under the specific address, let us say there is a 27th address in RAM and in which there is some data, 480. Now, what is being performed? The read operation must be performed, which means that CPU should also enable read line, which means that when the read line is enabled, under the address which is specified by the CPU, the data will be read, meaning that the data will get transferred to the data bus. and from the data bus to the CPU. Okay, so this is CPU, this is CPU. Okay, when CPU wants to read something out of some address, CPU will send the address reference to the main memory, that is RAM. Okay, the address that is being referenced will get transferred to the address bus. This is the address bus. This address bus is connected to the address lines of RAM, okay, under which there is a data element. Here, CPU wants to read the data. CPU is not perform writing. For that reason, CPU also is going to enable the read line, which means that under that specific address which is referenced by the CPU, the data item will be collected, will get transferred to the data bus. From the data bus, and the data bus, the data will get transferred back to the CPU. This is the thing. When CPU wants to perform writing, when the CPU wants to perform writing, what it will do? Let us say CPU want to perform, I'm using one more thing here. Okay. Again, CS1, CS2, read, write, address, data. CS1, CS2 bar, read, write, address, data. Okay. Now CPU want to write something into, transfer something into the address 23. Okay, so CPU will send this address to the address bus, and the data that has to be written, let us say CPU under 23rd address, the CPU want to place, let us say some 528. Okay, now CPU will transfer the address to the address bus, and CPU will transfer this data to this data bus. Okay, you know that address register and data register will get used for this regard. Address register is going to store the address which is going to be referenced into the main memory. The data register is going to access the data to and from the main memory. So when CPU wants to write some data into the main memory location, the data will be initially available in the data register. From the data register to the data bus, it will get transferred. Finally, under the address which is specified by the address bus, which is located here, the data will get transferred. So the address bus locates 23. Okay, 23 gets located. The data which is available in the data bus will be written in 23. So here writing is performed, which means that the CPU is going to enable the write pin. It is not reading now, we are writing right now. That means that write pin will get enabled. So when the write pin gets enabled, under the address which is specified by the address bus, the data which is available in the data bus will be written. That's it. Okay, so this is the thing. Now, when it comes to ROM, when you talk about ROM, the design of the ROM is quite simple, because only for RAM you need to have many connections. For ROM you don't need to have all such connections. Some of the connections of the RAM need not be present in ROM. Okay, when it comes to ROM, there will be CS1, there will be CS2, it is bar, and there will be address, there will be data. Okay, since ROM is not perform writing, I don't require write pin, right? I don't require write pin. So read pin, can we have the read pin? We don't need. Simply understand the logic. When you come to ROM, there is no choice. Only writing needed to be performed, right? Sorry, only reading needed to be performed, right? When it comes to ROM, only reading need to be performed. Okay, whenever ROM will get selected, obviously reading will get performed. So for that reason, we don't even require a read connection. Okay, we don't enable a read connection here. We will make it one and write and read it. No, this is not the case. Every time when a ROM will get selected, only reading will get performed out of the ROM. So for that reason, as we do not have any choice of the operations that are getting performed in the ROM, we don't require both write and read connections, which means that Every time ROM gets enabled, obviously, by default, reading will get performed. Whenever there is a choice, as in the case of RAM, we need to have two pins. One is read and one more is write. Whenever we don't have a choice, we don't need them at all. Okay, so this is how we're going to design both RAM and ROM. Okay, now chip selector 1 and chip selector 2. Let us see what is chip selector 1 and what is chip selector 2. Okay, what is chip selector 1 and what is chip selector 2? We just try to understand. For that, let me show you. Let us see that there is a RAM. This is the RAM of your system. Okay, now system works perfectly fine as long as this RAM works, right? System will not have any trouble whatsoever. But one fine day, you lost the access to the system. That is, system stopped functioning. System stopped functioning. Now, let me tell you something. When a system is, let us say, it is giving some trouble, it is not booting up, rather it is giving you some trouble, it is not functioning correctly. Which is the first thing to be suspected? Obviously RAM. Which is the first thing to be suspected? Obviously, that is RAM. Because try to understand. In a computer system, there are only two things will always work. One is CPU and one more is RAM. Okay. Both will work together. Both will work as long as each other works. Because these two people should complement each other. And these two guys are only guys who are always engaged in some or the other activity as long as the system is powered on, system is switched on, right? But here, of course, both people are equally loaded. Let me put it here, equally loaded, right? CPU and RAM both are equally loaded. There is no doubt about it. But the problem is, when it comes to the CPU, he is the strongest guy of the system. This guy, perhaps the strongest guy in the system, because when you take the CPU into your hand, you can feel the strongness. It is very, what do you call, you can see the endurance. It can have all the protection mechanisms. A fan is associated to that. You can feel that when you take a CPU into your palm, you can feel the strongness. But on the other hand, this RAM is not as stronger as the CPU. Okay, what you do is take CPU in one hand, take RAM in other hand. You can clearly see the difference. RAM is a delicate guy. RAM is the delicate guy. Okay, this component, which always works together with the CPU, is proven to be very delicate. Okay, and you can even break it without having much trouble. You can simply break the RAM into pieces, many pieces as as you want, right? This is the problem. CPU is the stronger one. RAM is not as stronger as the CPU. So, as long as you run your system, both guys will work. Okay, but during this operation, there might be several disturbances to both of these guys. What are the disturbances? Disturbances are from the external sources, either from the external sources or from the internal sources. External sources is, let us say, you do have a thunder. When there is a thunderbolt, definitely, the electricity will get affected. There will be power fluctuation. During the power fluctuation, the components will get affected. There will be direct effect of the power fluctuation on this RAM. There will be direct effect of the power fluctuation on the CPU. But the CPU can survive. CPU can survive, but RAM cannot, because CPU has many protection mechanisms which protects it. But RAM, you can see that there are no protection mechanisms for a RAM. Okay, that is the reason why every time, either it could be an external disturbance or an internal disturbance, the first thing which is susceptible, which is vulnerable to get damaged, is RAM. Okay. So what we do is, in order to reduce the load on a RAM chip, rather than using a single RAM chip, we are going to use multiple RAM chips. That means that there is a CPU and there is a RAM. Okay. Let us say my RAM is equal to 8 GB. Now you know that both guys will work together. CPU stronger, it is not susceptible or vulnerable to the external disturbances. It will not get damaged, but RAM will definitely be. So what we do is, we're going to divide this RAM chip into different pieces. We're going to organize the desired size of the RAM with the multiple chips. Okay, rather than using a single chip, you use 8 1 GB chips. 1 GB chips. Okay, you use 8 1 GB chips. At that time, though it works conjunctively with the CPU, the load will be equally distributed. The load of a RAM chip will get equally distributed. So the vulnerability will get reduced, right? So we do not have a single chip, rather we do have multiple chips. So the that load will get equally distributed. So the durability of the RAM will get increased. So that is the reason why what we do is, every RAM chip, which look like this, will have two chip selectors. That is CS1 and CS2. What are this? What is the relationship between dividing the RAM chips and having two chip selectors, CS1 and CS2? The thing is very simple. Let us say CPU want to transfer an information into RAM. Okay, CPU want to transfer the value of 250. Okay, this 250 must be sent to only one of those ranks. The CPU, the 250 has to be sent to only one of those ranks. It cannot be written into all the ranks. So what CPU has to do is, CPU will have to choose a RAM, and in which this 250 will have to get transferred. So here CS1 and CS2 will come into the picture. That is, in order to choose a RAM chip, CPU will have to make CS1 is equal to 1, CS2 is equal to 0. I hope you got it. That means that the data which is required to be transferred to the chips, or one of the RAM chips, anyhow will get transferred by selecting the chip. What is the selection criteria? Selection criteria is, CS1 needed to be 1, CS2 must be equal to 0. Okay, only for one chip it is valid. Okay, remaining chips will not have CS1 is equal to 1, CS2 is equal to 0. Okay, those CS1 and CS2 will not be active at all. Okay, for an example, at this case, CPU decides to choose this one. So it will be 1, it will be 0. At the same time, CPU ensures that remaining RAM chips CS1 and CS2 are not selected, which means that the data which is required to be transferred to the RAM chip will get transferred to only one RAM chip, in which CS1 is equal to 1, CS2 is equal to 0, which is selected by the CPU. At the same time, CPU should also ensure that the remaining RAM chip CS1 and CS2 combinations must not be selected. They should be tri-stated. Okay, tri-stated meaning no use. Okay, this is all about CS1 and CS2. Chip select 1 and chip selected 2. Now, everything will have CS1 and CS2. CS2 is barred, you can clearly see, which means that CS1 should be equal to 1, CS2 must be equal to 0 in order to select a chip. Here also ROM also, CS1 must be equal to 1, CS2 must be equal to 0. So this is how RAM and ROM chips are going to get constructed. Now let us discuss about a process in which the CPU is going to select exactly only one RAM chip from the available chips. Okay, this is called memory address mapping. Let us have a look at it. We're going to discuss about a process. The CPU is going to select only exactly one chip from the available total chips. Okay, this is called memory address mapping. This process is called memory address mapping. Okay, what is exactly memory address mapping? Okay, here there is a CPU, but there are multiple chips. When CPU want to communicate with the main memory, this is main memory altogether. So in order to have it secured and safe, what we have done is we have divided the main memory into several RAM chips rather than using a single chip. So we do have multiple chips, right? So there are several RAM chips and a ROM chip also. There is a ROM chip also. So, but a CPU will have to select exactly only one and only one chip, okay, for communicating. That is, either CPU can transfer or can receive the data to and from the main memory. So in this process, CPU should be able to select only one RAM chip or a ROM chip. Okay, this process is called memory address mapping. Okay, so let us see how this is going to happen. Okay, now see, the thing is, we need to divide our main memory into multiple chips. For that, let us take an example. By using an example, I'm going to demonstrate how memory address mapping is going to take place. Okay, let us take that example. Now let me take an example. I'm going to design my main memory with a size of 1024 words. Okay, my main memory is equal to 1024 words. You know that the main memory is a blend of RAM and ROM, right? The main memory should be composed of RAM and ROM. Okay, so what I'll do is I will use 512 RAM plus 512 word ROM, which means that I have divided equally the capacity of main memory into RAM and ROM. That is 512 words RAM and 512 words ROM. Okay, so here, you know that RAM is susceptible. The RAM is vulnerable to the external disturbances. So the RAM has a danger. RAM is under a danger of getting damaged during any disturbance, during any power fluctuation or any external disturbance or temperature rise. RAM may get failed. So what we are doing, we need to divide the RAM into multiple chips. So what I'll do is I will divide this RAM into multiple chips. Let us say I'm going to divide this 512 word of RAM into 4 equivalent chips. That is RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, and RAM 4, which is 128, 128, 128, 128 words each. So 4 into 128 is equal to 512. At the same time, I need not divide my ROM chip because ROM chip will not be accessed too frequently. ROM chip will be accessed very rarely during the system startup and during a scan is running. If a system requires the important files, only in such times ROM will be accessed. So ROM will not be accessed as much as RAM. So ROM will never be under a danger of getting damaged because ROM will be accessed very rarely. So I need not divide. Hence, I need not divide my ROM chip. I can use a single chip for ROM. That is of just 512 words. Okay. So in my system, if you can have a look at, I do have RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4, 4 RAM chips and 1 ROM chip. Okay. My main memory comprises of 5 different chips, 4 of RAM chips and 1 of ROM chip. Okay. Now let us see the process of memory address mapping here. Now, I do have 4 RAM chips, right? That is RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, and RAM 4. Okay. Each is of 128, 128, 128, 128. Now my ROM is of 512. Total capacity is 1024. Okay. Now let us have a look. Now here, in order to communicate with RAM and ROM, in order to communicate with my main memory, CPU uses an address bus. All right. In order to communicate with memory, CPU will use an address bus. Okay, whenever CPU wants to read something, CPU will send an address through the address bus and will collect the data from the data bus. Okay, now we'll see about the address bus, how the address bus is needed to be designed. Okay, let us see. What should be the size of the address bus for each RAM? RAM is of 128 words, right? 128 is equal to 2 power 7. So I require 7 address digits for RAM. Okay, 7 address digits for RAM. In order to communicate with ROM, the size of the ROM is equal to 512 words. So 512 is equal to 2 power 9. So there are 9 address bits for ROM. Okay, so in order to communicate with any of the RAM, I just require 7 address digits. In order to communicate with the available only one and only ROM, I do require 9 address digits, because 2 power 9 is equal to 512 and 2 power 7 is equal to 128. Now what we do is, we will take this size. My address bus can be equal to 9 digits. Address bus should be equal to 9 bits, because by using 9 bits address, I can either communicate with ROM or communicate with RAM. Now try to understand, we need to pick up a size for designing the address bus for the system. Since the address bus is going to represent both RAM and ROM, we need to take the maximum size. The maximum size is here, the 9 digits, right? If you use 9 digits, both RAM and ROM will get represented, will get selected. Okay, any of the RAM or ROM can be communicated with 9-digit address. Okay, because RAM will simply use 7 digits, ROM will use all the 9 digits. If I use a 7-digit address bus, only RAM will get selected. Only RAM will be, get communicated. But ROM will not get communicated with 7-digit address. Hence, I have to use 9-digit address. I hope you got it. So my address bus size must be equal to 9 digits. Okay. Now, let us put up this way. I'm gonna give you some important detail to design my address bus. Stay focused here. Okay. So here, address bus size must be equal to, should be equal to 9 digits. Okay. The problem is, we can't take 9 digits. Okay. The address should be either 8 bits or 16 digits or 24 digits or so on. Why, sir? Simple. The smallest representation in the computer system is 1 byte. Okay. For a 9-digit address, I do require 8 bits plus 1 additional digit. There is no way one special digit can be organized. Okay. So for that reason, I do require 2 bytes, that is 16 bits. Since 9 bits cannot be organized, 9 bits cannot be organized, but 16 bits is possible, because the address bus size must be equal to 9 bits. 9 bits meaning 1 byte plus 1 bit. Okay. Anything less than 1 byte, you do require to procure a total byte. Here, 1 byte is already there. However, in addition to 1 byte, I need to take an additional digit. I can tell you that there is no way that you can organize an additional digit independently. Bit is a part of a byte. Okay, for that reason, in order to construct my address bus, I require 2 bytes, 16 bits. Okay, in which 9 digits will be for the address. Okay, now let us see. My address bus size is equal to, 16 digits. Okay, bus is equal to 16. Okay, by using a table, I'm going to completely demonstrate this. Stay focused. Okay, so here, this axis will represent the bits. Okay, that is number of bits for the address bus. This is address bus bits. I will write it here. Address bus. Okay. So how many digits total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to 16. 11 to 16 I'm not representing here, but anyhow my address bus is of total 16 digits. Okay, how many chips are needed to be communicated? There are 5 chips. RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4, ROM. Okay, in these address bits, how many are used for RAM? Okay, if you want to communicate with RAM, how many bits will be used? 7 digits, because RAM is equal to 128. For representing a 128 word RAM, I do require 7 address digits, right? So all the RAM chips will be represented with least significant 7 address digits. So when you send an address to the RAM, any of the RAMs, least significant 7 digits will be consumed, right? The address bus will have the least significant 7 digits occupied whenever you send an address to select one of the RAM. Once again, whenever an address has been referenced from the CPU to select one of the RAMs, least significant 7 digits will be occupied. It could be any RAM, okay, because RAM is equal to 128. Okay, RAM 3, this is RAM 4. The least significant 7 digits will get occupied. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 5, 6, 7. Least significant 7 digits will get occupied. So for RAM chips, from 8th digit onwards, all the bits are free. In the address bus, only least significant 7 digits will get occupied. From the 8th digit onwards, when there is an address reference to the RAM sent from the CPU, from the 8th digit onwards, everything will be a free bit. Okay, will not be occupied. Okay, so for RAM case, 8 to 16 are completely free. 1 to 7 occupied. For ROM case, what is the ROM size? The ROM size is equal to 512 words, which means that least significant 9 digits will be occupied whenever there is an address reference sent to ROM. Okay, so you can clearly see 8 and from 8th digit onwards, everything is free. For RAM, 8 to 16 completely free, but for ROM, total 9 are occupied. From 10 to 16, everything is free. Okay, so in order to represent a RAM, least significant 7 digits must be occupied, remaining digits will be free. In order to represent a ROM, rather in order to communicate with ROM, least significant 9 digits should be occupied, remaining digits will be free. I hope you got this point now. Let me tell you, here, whenever there is an address reference is sent to main memory, first of all, we need to identify this address reference is communicating with either ROM or RAM, either ROM or RAM. We need to identify. So what we do is, in order to differentiate in between ROM and RAM, what we can do is, being designers, we can use one common unused digit between RAM and ROM. What is a common unused digit? From 10th digit to 16th digit, these are not used commonly by both RAM and ROM. Okay, I hope you got it. So what I'll do is, I will take one unused digit in between RAM and ROM. Of course, from 10 to 16, I do have a choice. These 10 to 16 are not occupied by neither of the RAM address nor of the ROM address when these are getting communicated. So I will use one of the common unused digits, in this case, 10th digit. I will use this 10th digit to differentiate in between RAM and ROM. Okay, so when CPU sends an address reference, CPU ensures that the 10th digit is equal to 1. Okay, to select a ROM. Okay, and it ensures that 10th digit is equal to 0 to select RAM. I hope you got it. So if you want to identify which RAM chip, rather which ROM chip has been selected, what you do is first you go and have a look at the 10th digit. If the 10th digit is equal to 1, that means that ROM is selected. If the 10th digit is equal to a 0, that means that one of the RAM is selected. Now, fine. Whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, fine, ROM will be selected. Data will be read. Whenever 10th digit is equal to a 0 in the address bus, then we got one more situation. When 10th is equal to a 0, we do have 4 options: RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4. Okay. Again, of course, the address reference is falling under a RAM, but which RAM? That will be differentiated by using any of other unused bits. Now I will use 9 and 8 digits. Okay. If 9 and 8 digits are 0, 0, the address is falling under RAM 1, 0, 1, RAM 2, 1, 0, RAM 3, 1, 1, RAM 4. I hope you got it. That is, first of all, how to differentiate in between RAM and ROM. Because my main memory is not a single module. My main memory has 5 modules attached to it. My main memory has 5 modules attached to it. What are those? RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4, and ROM. My address bus connects all these RAMs and ROM, right? This is address bus. Address bus size is equal to 16 digits. This is ROM, this is RAM 1, this is RAM 2, this is RAM 3, this is RAM 4. Okay. Now, how to differentiate, first of all, in between ROM and RAM? How the CPU is going to identify that is needed to be communicated is either a ROM or a RAM. Okay. So what we do is, we will ensure that we observe the 10th digit. Okay. If the referenced address has a 1 in the 10th digit, that means that that address reference will be falling under ROM. Okay. If the 16-bit address has a 0 in the 10th digit, that means that this address reference is falling under a RAM. Again, when it is equal to a 0, again we need to select only one of the RAMs, because there are 4 RAMs: RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4. Okay. So for that reason, we will use 8 and 9 digits, because 8 and 9 digits are free for RAM. Okay. So what we'll do is, if the reference address has 0, 0 in 8 and 9 digits and having a 0 in the 10th digit, which means that this is falling under RAM 1. Okay. If the reference address has a 0 in the 10th digit and 0, 1 in the 8 and 9 digits, rather in 9 and 8 or 9 and 8, sorry, 9 and 8 digits, and then it is falling under RAM 2. And there is a 0 in the beginning, that is the 10th digit, 1, 0 in 9 and 8 digits, 1, 0 in 9 and 8 digits, that will be falling under ROM 3. Okay. A 0 in the 10th bit position, 1, 1 in 9 and 8, that is falling under RAM 4. I will use it here: 10th digit, 9th digit, 8th digit. Okay. Whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, regardless of 9 and 8, it will be for ROM. Okay. Whenever 10th digit is equal to a 0, whenever a 10th digit is equal to a 0, okay, then we need to see the 9 and 8 digits. If the 9 and 8 digits are is equal to 0, 0, RAM 1, 0, 1, RAM 2, 1, 0, RAM 3, 1, 1, RAM 4. Okay. This is called memory address mapping. Through this process, CPU is going to identify one of the module that is needed to be communicated in this situation. In our case, I do have 5 different modules attached to the main memory. 5 different modules attached to the main memory. Okay. 4 modules are RAM modules, which are equal to 128 each. One module is a ROM module, which is equal to 512. Okay. So by using the process what I have explained you in a short while ago, just a short while ago, these modules will get communicated. Okay. The concept of dividing main memory into multiple modules to avoid overloading is also called memory interleaving. That is what we are doing. In fact, rather than having a single chip, we are dividing into multiple modules. It is simply to avoid damage, right? Because the memory is also as much loaded as CPU, but CPU is properly protected, but main memory is not. And in particular, RAM chip. So we are dividing RAM into multiple modules. This concept is also called memory interleaving. Now, let us demonstrate the same concept by using a PPT. Here, of course, you have seen the configuration that I have explained you in the previous slide. Here, which the memory configuration is 512 bytes of RAM and 512 bytes of ROM. 1 into 512 bytes of ROM, because we don't need to divide ROM. ROM is not overloaded. But we have to RAM, because RAM is overloaded. So 4 into 128. Here, the memory address mapping, the address bus is of 16 digits because we need to have 9-digit address bus. Since we cannot organize 9-digit address bus, we'll have to take 16-digit address bus, in which 7 will be occupied RAM's case, 9 will be occupied for ROM's case. So 9 and 8 digits are going to represent RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4. Okay, 9 and 8 digits, RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4. Here it has to be RAM 1, 2, 3, 4. PPT is slightly different or wrong. Okay, but when it comes to 10th bit, if the 10th bit is equal to 1 in the address line, then that address will fall under ROM. Okay, so this concept is also called memory interleaving. What is memory interleaving? Dividing the memory into multiple modules to avoid the overload is also called memory interleaving. I am just telling you because most of you people, when you are going through any question, you will get yourself into trouble by looking at the question. In some question, they will ask about memory interleaving. And at that time, if you're not familiar with the term, it will be a big drawback. Okay, so you'll have to understand all the terms. Though you know the topic, but when you don't know the term, you may not think in the right direction. So you just get to know all the terms which are related to every topic. Okay, so this is also called memory interleaving precisely. Okay, so here the same thing what I have explained you in Paint, it was given in a table. This table we have already drawn. You know that RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4 will have 7 address digits occupied. Okay, for ROM, 9 address digits are occupied. Okay, and in order to differentiate in between RAM and ROM, we use the 10th digit. When 10th digit is equal to 1, ROM will get selected. When 10th digit is equal to a 0 in the address line, RAM is going to be selected. Again, when the 10th digit is equal to a 0, that means that we need to identify one of the RAM. When 10th digit is equal to a 0, then we need to find out which RAM it is. Then you have to look at 9 and 8 digits. It means that if the 9 and 8 digits are equal to 0, 0, first RAM, 0, 1, second RAM, 1, 0, third RAM, 1, 1, fourth RAM. For an example, I am going to give you one address line which is of 16 digits. We will do a small practice of identifying the address line in which module it is falling in. Okay, let us have a look at. This is the 16-bit address line, right? Now CPU sends this address reference. Okay, now we need to identify this address reference is falling under which module? Okay, so for this, you just observe the 10th line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10th digit is equal to 1, right? The 10th digit is equal to 1. Means that this remaining 9-digit address will have to be located in ROM. Okay, so again now, I'm going to give you one more address. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is another 16-digit address. Again, have a look at CPU want to communicate with one of RAM or ROM in which this address is falling under. Okay. Now, again, if you want to identify the module to which this address is referencing, you need to find out the 10th digit again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10th digit is equal to a 0, which means that it is a RAM. Okay. Which RAM it is? Go and have a look at 9 and 8 digits. 9 and 8 digits are 10. 10 meaning? 10 meaning the third RAM, right? Yes, 10 is, yes, third RAM. Okay, so this is falling under RAM 3. Okay, so after which this 7-digit address will be located in RAM 3. Once again, just look at the address reference and identify the 10th digit. If the 10th digit is 1, then fine. The remaining 9 digits will give you a ROM address. The address which is in a ROM, which is in the ROM in fact. And when the 10th digit is equal to a 0, it is falling under a RAM. But which RAM? Just check out for 9 and 8 digits. Here 9 and 8 digits are equal to 10. 10 meaning you know that it is a third RAM. Okay, so it is a third RAM, and the least significant 7-digit address will be falling under RAM 3. We're going to perform either read or write, which is intended to be the operation that is needed to be done by the CPU. Okay, so this is the thing. This is also called memory interlink. Now, the logic for the memory address mapping has been defined, and now we need to implement the same logic in the connections. That is, whenever corresponding lines are enabled, the desired module should get selected. For an example, when 10th bit is 1, then ROM should get selected. When 10th digit is equal to a 0, then RAM should get selected, right? So we need to make the appropriate connections in which the logic which has been defined will get exactly implemented. Now let us have a look at the connections from the bus system to the each module. Now have a look at this. Here, if you can actually see, the bus system is of 16 digits. Address bus is of 16 digits. And there is a data bus. Okay. And there are RAM 1, RAM 2, RAM 3, RAM 4, and ROM. Okay. Every RAM has these many connections. Let me write it. Every RAM has, CS1, CS2, read, write, address, and the data. This is the data connection. Okay. And every ROM has CS1, CS2, and address. Because read and write connections are not needed for ROM. Every RAM has these many connections, and only the one and only ROM we do have in the system has these connections, because we don't require read and write for ROM, because in case when ROM is selected, only read operation gets performed. Okay. Now we need to make appropriate connections to have our logic appropriately implemented. So what is the logic? The logic, again, let me remind you, whenever 10th digit of the address bus is equal to 1, ROM should get selected. Okay. Whenever 10th digit of the address bus is equal to 0, RAM should get selected. If ROM gets selected, all the RAMs must be disabled. If RAM gets selected, the ROM should get disabled. Okay. This is the logic. Okay. Now we will exactly implement this. Whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, ROM should be selected and RAM should be disabled, right? Now, you know the selection technique, okay? The logic for the selection. The logic for the selection is CS1 should be equal to 1 and CS2 should be equal to 0. Okay, this is the selection logic. Okay, the first choice is CS1 must be equal to 1. Second rule is CS2 must be equal to 0, which means that that particular module will get enabled. So we will exactly implement this. Okay, so what we'll do is, now let us say 10th digit is equal to 1. In this case, for an instance, let us take 10th digit is equal to 1. Now we need to ensure that all the RAMs must be disabled and ROM should get enabled. Okay, so first we will ensure that RAM will get disabled. So what I'll do is, in order to disable the RAM whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, what I'll do is, I will take the 10th digit, I will connect to CS2 of all the RAM chips. I will write it here. 10th digit will get connected to all the CS2 of RAM. Okay, which means that whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, CS2 will be equal to 1 for RAM, which means that the rule for the selection is invalid, right? The straight away, the RAMs will get disabled because CS2 is equal to 1 means the corresponding chip will get disabled. So what I'll do is 10th digit, I will connect it to CS2 of a RAM, all the RAM. Okay, so whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, the corresponding all the RAMs CS2s will be equal to 1. So immediately those will get disabled. Okay, now we need to enable ROM. We disable RAM, we should enable ROM when 10th is equal to 1. So what I'll do is, I will connect 10th digit to CS2 of ROM. See, I did not connect 10th digit directly to the CS2 of the ROM. What I have taken is, I have inverted the 10th digit and connected to the CS2 of the ROM. Okay, which means that whenever 10th digit is equal to 1, of course, all the RAMs will get directly disabled because 10th digit is directly connected to all the CS2s. So in which CS2 will be equal to 1, so the RAM gets disabled, and then this 10th digit is inverted and connected to CS2 of the ROM. Whenever it is inverted, CS2 will be equal to 0, which means that one selection rule is satisfied. That is, CS2 is equal to 0. And we need to ensure that second selection rule, that is CS1 is equal to 1, needs to get satisfied. Okay, we will achieve this by connecting the read pin to the CS1 of the ROM. Read pin must get enabled, read pin must get connected to CS1 of ROM, because whenever ROM gets selected, only the operation that is going to be performed is read. Obviously, read will be equal to 1, which means that read is equal to 1, that is CS1, and 10th digit is equal to 1, which is inverted, that is connected to CS2 of ROM, which will select ROM and which will disable RAMs, because all the RAMs chips CS2 is from 10th digit, Okay, now we need to enable RAM. Okay, whenever 10th digit is equal to a 0. Now selection criteria for RAM we need to discuss. Now already RAM CS2 is connected from the 10th digit. That means that whenever 10th digit is equal to a 0, okay, and this gets connected to CS2 of RAM, right? So one selection condition has been enabled. Again, selection condition I am writing. CS1 should be equal to 1. CS2 must be equal to 0. Okay. So one selection condition has been satisfied when we connect 10th digit to the CS2, because already 10th digit is connected to CS2. So RAM will get enabled. That means that ROM should get disabled. Obviously, ROM will get disabled because this 10th digit inversion is connected to ROM's CS2, CS2 of ROM. So 10th digit is equal to a 0. That means that 0 inversion is 1. 1, if it is connected to CS2, the condition will not get satisfied. The selection condition will not get satisfied. So ROM will get disabled. Now, RAM, of course, one condition is satisfied. RAM's CS2 is equal to 0. But all the RAM CS2 will be equal to 0 because this 10th digit, if you can have a look at, this is connected to all the CS2s. Okay. This is. Let us say 10th digit is equal to 0. So all CS2s are enabled, meaning all the RAMs are ready to be enabled, but only one chip should get enabled. How do we going to define which RAM chip? Whenever 10th digit is equal to a 0, one of the RAM chips should get enabled, which is going to be decided by 9 and 8 digits, right? Whenever 9 and 8 digits, 0, 0, first RAM, 0, 1, second RAM, 0, 1, second RAM, 1, 0, third RAM, 1, 1, fourth RAM. So what I'll do is, these 9 and 8 digits, I will connect it to a decoder. So obviously, the decoder outputs will get connected to CS1, 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 CS1 of all the RAM chips. The first output of a decoder is connected to CS1 of RAM 1. Second output of the decoder is connected to CS1 of RAM 2. Third output is connected to CS1 of RAM 3. Fourth output is connected to this is the third output. Yes, this is the fourth output in fact. Okay, first output is connected to CS1 of RAM 1. Second output is connected to CS1 of RAM 2. The third output is connected to CS1 of RAM 3. And the fourth output is connected to CS1 of RAM 4, which means that we did make an appropriate connections. Whenever it is 0, 0, 9 and 8 digits are 0, 0, this will get enabled, right? Okay, so CS1 is equal to 1, CS2 is already 0 because CS2 has been taken from 10th digit. RAM will get selected only when 10th digit is equal to a 0. So CS1 is equal to 1, CS2 is equal to 0, which means that RAM 1 will get selected. Otherwise, if it is 0, 1, then second RAM will get selected. CS1 will be equal to 1, CS2 is already 0. So likewise, one of the RAM chips or ROM chips will get appropriately selected. Okay, I urge you people to draw this block diagram clearly on a paper and have this connection by yourself. The rule is 10th digit must be connected to all the CS2 of the RAM and invert it and connect it to CS2 of ROM. Okay, which will satisfy the condition RAM should get enabled, ROM should get disabled whenever it is equal to a 0. Okay, and read pin must be connected to CS1 of ROM. Okay, and you connect 9 and 8 to a decoder. Outputs of the decoder must be connected to all the CS1s of each and every RAM. Okay, and obviously read and write lines of each and every RAM should be connected to the system read and write lines which are in the bus system. Obviously, data bus must be connected to the data lines of all the RAM and ROM. Likewise, we can realize the logic that has been defined in the memory address mapping exactly getting reflected in selecting the proper module, corresponding module, whenever desired lines are enabled. This is the thing with memory connections to the CPU. Okay, so once again, I ask you people to draw these connections very clearly so that it will be made crystal clear and easier for you guys. Okay. Thank you.